Welcome to episode 2 of Israel Undiplomatic. I'm Ruthie Blum, senior contributing editor at JNS.
And I am Mark Regev. At the moment, I'm the chair of the Abba Eban Institute at Reichman University, and before that, I was the Israeli ambassador to the UK, amongst other things.
It's great to be here with you again, Mark. And, Mark and I met when I worked briefly at the Prime Minister's office. And we spent so much time arguing, even though we have basically the same worldview, we spent so much time arguing. And so we decided to do it on air.
And I promise that we'll argue again today. But I want to start off with a question, Ruthie. We just went through Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel Independence Day. And the whole country was in this, do we celebrate, don't we celebrate, because of what's going on. The hostages, the war, the soldiers that are getting killed. What did you do on Yom Ha'atzmaut?
Well, I worked. I was interviewed on a couple of television shows, and actually it sort of cheered me up to have to be defending the country on air, because the night before I was feeling extremely despondent, not only about October 7th and all the hostages and the horrific stories that were coming out, but also because I was getting very disillusioned with the way we're handling the war. I think we should be much more forceful, and that we should have been way beyond where we are in Rafah. What about you? What did you do?
So there's a tradition that I have with a group of friends. I was, as you know, born in Australia, and I was in a Zionist youth movement, a Labour Zionist youth movement, Habonim. And
you lefties.
Yeah. We all left the kibbutz. We all went to the same kibbutz, and we all left the kibbutz. No one lives on a kibbutz anymore of this group. And but we have a thing that every once in a while we get together with our families, and we had this barbecue. This time it was in Kiryat Ono. It was a lot of fun. It's good to catch up with old friends, and also because they're not people I see every day of the week. When you get a. It can be for me also, I don't want to say a focus group, that's the wrong word, but I can sort of get in touch with, real people who aren't in the political world and what they're thinking about issues. We had a serious conversation about, where's the war going and the government. And Israelis want to win, but there are a lot of question marks out there too.
Well, I don't know. I've got to tell you, I think a lot of Israelis on the left don't really want us to win. And, I'm actually appalled by the amount of so-called centrists. I don't call them centrists. I call them far leftists, who really think that, no, there's no point. There's no such thing as victory. Prime Minister Netanyahu has said we need to achieve total victory. And then, this whole section of society makes fun of him for saying that. And I think it's terrible. We're in the middle of an existential war. And whatever disagreements we have, I think it's pretty awful that. And even if you don't like Netanyahu, so what? We're fighting a war, and we have to be on the same side. And I actually am very discouraged by that.
I think when I look at my friends and maybe larger Israeli society, how many people really today? October 7th was a wake-up call for a lot of people who had illusions about the Palestinian leadership, about the Palestinians and where they are. I felt that in my conversations with people over the holiday, that some people in the past who would have, said, I'm for a Palestinian state and I'm for... Today, I think the way the Palestinian leadership has acted, they've lost even, and we spoke about this in our first episode last week, I think they've even lost the Israeli left. If someone like Yair Golan, yes, says he doesn't want to talk about a Palestinian state, it's not the issue. What does that mean? And
I think it means that he's afraid to lose votes. That's what I think it means. Okay.
But he wants left-wing votes. And he, even with his own constituency, Israelis look at the Palestinian leadership on the West Bank. They refuse to condemn October 7th. In fact, they'll justify it. And you were telling me this morning before this broadcast that Fatah publicly now announced that it was involved in the October 7th massacre.
Which we know, and it was, yes.
But now they've publicly owned it, yes. There are serious issues here. And if anyone thinks, right, that the Israeli public is interested in a Palestinian state, they have to come here and visit and talk to real Israelis.
Well, I'm more worried not so much about how they feel about a Palestinian state. I'm more worried about what they feel about a Jewish state. And I'm talking about Israelis, right? I think based on the last election and based on other polls, etc., The bulk of the public really is Zionist, patriotic, and most, I think, really do not want to face an election in the middle of a war. However, we have our academics, the mainstream media here, and others who and the courts. We have voices that are very, very strong that are trying to pull us back to October 6th, when our biggest argument was over judicial reform and whether we should be allowed to show Jewish ceremonies in the public square. And now suddenly, after these months, and I think part of that is because we have been very, very careful not to try to win the war right away. And that had to do with diplomatic concerns that I think you probably agreed with and I didn't.
I did agree with you, because ultimately, when you look at the concept of national security, okay, so what's called hard power, military victory, that's crucial. I mean, and let's be clear. If Israel doesn't win this war, nothing else matters. We have to win the war. Everything else stems from that. We're criticized abroad. UN will be against us. Some countries will stop selling us weapons, maybe in Europe and so forth. But we have to win this war. And if that's the price to be paid, I mean, I'll say this to you, Ruthie. We're losing young men in battle. What was it over Yom Ha'atzmaut? We lost 5 soldiers. I saw they were from the unit I served in, the Nahal Brigade, 931. We're losing young men and women. We're paying a price for victory. And so there's a diplomatic price. There might be an economic price.
Excuse me, maybe the diplomacy is what's costing us our soldiers' lives. And, as the mother-in-law of a soldier, reservists, they're older than, they're not regular soldiers, they're already in reserves. I can tell you that the fact that we spend so much time on diplomacy with actors, that in the end, they don't even give us credit for it. I mean, that's the thing you and I have been arguing about. I thought all along the United States was, we spend all this time saying, oh, how wonderful, and our best ally and our best ally. But, it turns out that on October 7th itself, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, and I'm originally from the United States, unlike you, you're from Australia, as you said, he tweeted that we shouldn't retaliate. I mean, this is a terrible administration as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sorry, and I really don't feel like thanking them all the time for their aid, because it's in their interests for us to be victorious in the Middle East.
So friendship, like any relationship, you have ups and downs, and you have to work on the relationship. But even with all your complaints about American policy, I still think you'd be very, very hard-pressed to find on the planet another country that is as friendly and as supportive of Israel as is the United States of America. And whether that's the military support that they give us, whether it's the diplomatic support, their protection at the UN, their veto at the UN, which they used again very recently, whether it's the economic support, and we know what the Congress just did with this supportive package of military support for Israel. I mean, we can argue with them. We can disagree with them. We're not a satellite. We're an independent country. But not to be thankful for American support, I think, is to deny reality. We have to be thankful.
There's a difference between being thankful for something and being grateful, feeling that you owe something. I'm going to stress this again. It is an American interest to have a strong Israel. It's also an Israeli interest to have a strong America, no question about that. But you have an administration in Washington that really doesn't want to be the leader of the free world. That's the first problem, okay? I'm not saying that it's especially anti-Israel. I would be happy if the Biden administration were more pro-America as well.
So the truth is, of course, everyone in Israel was disappointed, frustrated, angry at the decision. It's not really a decision yet, but when the president said that they would hold up certain weapons, certain, I think, bombs for the IDF. But, it's happened before. In 1981, Begin bombed the Iraqi nuclear reactor. I think everyone agrees today, even people who then were critical, agrees that he did the right thing when he destroyed the Iraqi nuclear reactor. What Saddam Hussein would have done with nuclear weapons. But at the time, we were condemned by the Americans. And not only did they support a UN Security Council resolution that condemned Israel, they also held up fighter aircraft. I think it was F-15s, maybe it was F-16s.
Okay, but you're just proving my point. Begin went ahead with it, okay? What my point is that we have to stop. We are a sovereign nation. We got to stop getting nervous every time some statement comes out of the Biden administration, usually a senile statement, but never mind. The point is that we should have been in Rafah a long time ago, and that's just the United States. What about Egypt? Another ally. What about Jordan? Another ally. You and I, our first fight at the Prime Minister's office was why we were letting Queen Rania of Jordan get away with denying the rapes on October 7th. And to this day, she has a nerve to be accusing us of all kinds of war crimes and devastating Gaza. She has a nerve, and we're not allowed to call her out on it, but she can go against. Again, we're also Jordan's ally, not just the other way around.
I am very critical of a lot of Jordanian behavior. But you've always got to remember, Ruthie, that our longest border with any neighboring country is with Jordan, from the Sea of Galilee in the north down to Eilat Aqaba in the south. And guess what? It's a peaceful border because there is security contacts, good security contacts. And you will recall when the Iranians shot all those missiles on us 3 weeks ago, the ones, many over Jordanian territory, were shot down by the Jordanians. Now, they didn't do it for us, at least that's what they said.
Exactly.
They said that it was an infringement of their sovereignty, but those missiles were not aimed at Jordan. They were over Jordanian territory, but they were aimed at us. And so I think one has to, and maybe I'm better at this than you have to have some nuance, right? You have to understand that sometimes the Jordanians are going to vote at the UN in ways that you don't like, and they're going to say things that you don't appreciate and that are...
Maybe you have to understand it. I certainly do not have to understand it. Yes, that's right. You're a diplomat, okay? I'm not a diplomat, and I don't understand it at all.
That's clear to all our listeners and viewers.
I'm not a diplomat, and what I want to say is that it works both ways. You're telling me that we have this border and we need their cooperation. They also need our cooperation. You know that Jordan just announced, or a certain anonymous Jordanian sources announced, that today, I believe it was, they halted or they intercepted an Iranian plot to topple the king. And it was an Iranian plot to use Hamas operatives in Jordan to topple the king. And Palestinians in Jordan are second-class citizens also. So how dare Jordan come out publicly and attack us? You think Jordan thinks really that we're committing genocide in Gaza? Give me a break.
Ruthie, I would remind you that one of the most important events that happened in Israel's relationship with the United States was over Jordan. September 1970, when Yasser Arafat and his Fedayeen tried to make a revolution in Jordan, and the Syrians sent their tanks in to support the Fedayeen to overthrow the king, and Israel mobilized. And we sent our Air Force just to fly over the advancing Syrians, and that was a message enough. The Syrians retreated, and the Jordanians defeated the Palestinians, and there were Palestinians running to Israel with their hands up because they didn't want to be caught by the Jordanian authorities, by the Jordanian military. So what you're saying to me is known. It's historic fact. I think, though, when we deal with our Arab peace partners, we can't expect them... In other words, I get very angry sometimes with what they say publicly, but we have to understand that there is this dissonance, which many people in the West don't understand, between what they say publicly and what they do, what they say in closed meetings and what they say when, what they actually do.
Well, we also know that what if you're talking, for example, about the Palestinians, the Palestinian Authority always says something different in English and in Arabic. That's for sure. For international consumption. But still, rhetoric matters, and especially when we're in the middle of a war, all right? And it's one thing, I have to tell you, you're saying we have to understand our Arab peace partners. The truth is that our Abraham Accords partners, and we were about to add Saudi Arabia to that list. We seemed to have been on the verge before October 7th.
We might still be.
And we might still be. However, Saudi Arabia, like the United Arab Emirates, the Gulf states, they are actually watching us very carefully in the Middle East. if we don't achieve total victory, they go to the other side. They're watching, whatever they're saying about how we can't kill too many Palestinians, they don't care about the Palestinians. They're afraid that if we lose in this war, and in any war, by the way, if we lose and if America goes weak, that they have to have alliances more with Iran than with us,
Look,
and with China, and it's awful.
I don't want you to talk me into some sort of naive dove. Yes, I believe in real politic. I believe in military power. I believe the Arab countries that make peace with Israel are only doing so because we're strong, and we're strong militarily, we're strong economically, we're strong diplomatically. All those are functions of national security. No one needs a weak ally. People need strong allies. And I agree with you that Israel winning this war and showing our strength and showing our vitality and showing the power that we can use if we need to, I think that's actually conducive to Arab-Israel peace, because then we're a more desirable ally and partner for the neighboring Arab states.
Absolutely. And my trouble is, you're saying we have soldiers fighting, as I say, including my own family members. We have soldiers who are sitting ducks in the event that we don't know. And one of the reasons is, you can say we're doing it, that we need to do it for international reasons. But part of the reason is that we have to be extra careful. We're being very careful not to kill any civilians. Okay, we've always done that. That's not new, all right? Constantly accusing us of war crimes and killing civilians. Actually, we don't. We have a very low ratio of combatant to civilian death. Of civilian to combatant deaths. And we always have. We always prided ourselves on being the most moral army, et cetera. We have all kinds of rules of war. And because of that, our own soldiers are in danger. And I've got to tell you, we've had, actually, I don't want to mention his name here at the moment to get into internal Israeli politics. Someone in our government who said outright that if it's a question of that we would protect our enemies' civilians more than our own soldiers. And I think that that's immoral.
That's over the top.
That's immoral, in my opinion. And I think that we've got a real problem with that.
I want to go back to Biden for a moment and the decision that once again, he hasn't done anything yet, but he said that if we go into Rafah, he could and maybe would stop providing certain types of munitions that we need. And once again, Americans have done these things in the past. We spoke about 1981 with Begin and the reactor. But I think it's a huge mistake. First of all, it's a huge policy mistake from the point of view of the Americans, because you're giving succor, you're giving support to Hamas, maybe inadvertently. But if I'm a Sinwar in my bunker in Gaza and the Israelis are moving forward, and I think the Americans are about to save my bacon, so to speak. Can you say bacon? Jews don't eat bacon. Muslims don't eat bacon.
Neither do Muslims. So it's okay.
Yeah, right. But, I mean, is this going to make him release the hostages? Is this going to make him be more flexible in a deal? Of course not. If he believes that Israel can't go in, if he believes that there's not a feasible Israel military option, it's bad. I also think, and you know American politics maybe better than me, but it's a mistake for him politically, because even though he's wrapping our knuckles, so to speak, he's not going to make all those anti-Israel demonstrators happy. They'll always want more. They're the ones that they call him a
genocide Joe.
Correct.
And they
He's not going to make them happy. He can never reach their standard of anti-Israelism. And he's going to alienate some of the traditional Democrats who are very supportive of Israel. So I think it's from the point of view of strategy, it's a mistake, and from the point of view of politics, it's a mistake. And I hope that we don't hear much more of this in the future, though I don't know.
Well, I certainly hope he loses the election. So, if what he's doing is a direct line to an electoral defeat, I'm all for it. However,
even if Israel doesn't get weapons in the short term?
No. Well, I'll tell you, Netanyahu, I have to say I was really happy when I heard him say, look, if we have to go it alone, we will, including if we have to do so with our fingernails, claw with our fingernails to a victory. I was happy he said it. I just want to see him do it. And one of the things Netanyahu is known for good and bad, he's known for being extremely cautious. All right, he's not a warmonger. This is the irony. He doesn't even get credit for being cautious. He's always attacked for the wrong things, if you want to know. He's cautious, and as a result, and I feel Yes, it's easy to say when you're not sitting inside and you're not in the war room and you're not a general, it's easy to say it. However, I will say that I'm getting very disgusted with some of our generals, our chief of staff, who had the nerve to start entering politics. He's already planning his political career after this war by going and saying, we need a plan for the day after Gaza. It's not his business. His business is to amass the troops and send them where he's supposed to send them.
So I would say the following. The first thing, which is about Netanyahu actually being very cautious in the use of the military. It's true, and not just you say so, right-wing Ruthie, but there's a book, a biography of Netanyahu written by a left-wing Israeli journalist, a very critical book, Angel Pfeffer.
Yes, very
wrote
critical.
The biography. But he says in the book, actually, if you look at the way Netanyahu uses force, he's actually much more cautious than all the recent Israeli prime ministers, more than Barak, more than Sharon, more than Olmert. And maybe this has changed now with this current war, but this current war was forced upon us. It's not something that, that we saw.
Oh, Mark, all wars are forced upon us. All we want to do is sing, let's give peace a chance, and go to the Nova Festival. I'm not being sarcastic. That's what Jews are always doing. We're not naturally fighters, is the truth. Okay, people make fun of us about, how wussy we are. Certainly American Jewish men, it was always a joke about that, The fact is, we don't want to go to war. It's always forced on us. All we want is peace, and they won't let us.
And here, I saw there were some students at Tel Aviv University, I think, from the communists, who wanted to mark Nakba Day, the day of the what they call the Palestinian catastrophe.
Yes, they're doing it.
I'm willing to say, and maybe you are too, Ruthie. I'll be interested to hear your opinion.
Oh, don't say free speech.
No. Forget free speech for the moment. We've got free speech in Israel, like it or love it. We've got free speech in Israel. But I actually think we can say openly that the Palestinians suffered in 1948, right? Palestinians, many of them became refugees. If they wanted a state of their own, which the UN also gave them in the partition resolution, they didn't get that. The idea of dispossession, I can understand. But why did they say Nakba and we blame Israel? Who said no to the UN partition proposal?
Exactly.
Who started a war that created the refugee crisis? And I'd like to hear, and you don't see it, where are the Palestinian intellectuals? Where is the Palestinian leadership that is willing to stand up and say, in 1947 we were offered a Palestinian state, our leadership said all or nothing, and guess what? They got nothing. Yes, there's been a Palestinian tragedy, but who has been responsible for that Palestinian tragedy? First and foremost,
Their leaders.
Their leaders. And it's also easy, maybe not just for Palestinians, for everyone, to blame always someone else. It's always someone else's fault. It's the British with the Balfour Declaration. It's the Americans for their support of Israel. It's the Europeans. It's, of course, the terrible Zionists, yes, in their opinion. But a bit of it.
And also, I'm getting a little sick and tired. All these years, we're always excusing these so-called general population, this kind of nameless, faceless. We say the leadership is bad, but the people aren't bad. The leadership is bad. Now, first of all, very often, the people we're defending support that leadership. But let's say they don't, okay? Let's say they're victims of their own leadership. And that's true of many Arab Israelis as well, that the Israeli leadership in the Knesset hasn't been exactly Zionist, to put it mildly. But the thing is, I'm sick and tired of it. And why am I sick and tired of it? Because, okay, you guys, it's time for you then, if we don't hear those voices, then step up and raise your voice, okay? We are worried about how victimized they are. No, we've got to protect our own children. Let those voices come up and protect their children who are used as human shields in Gaza and whose parents teach them in the West Bank to go out and put suicide vests on themselves. Why do I have to worry about those parents more than I have to worry about my own children?
Look, one of the reasons that the leadership in the Palestinian Authority, specifically Abbas, a man who's been courted by the international community, who's seen as the Palestinian moderate, the future head
the
of...
terrorist in a tie.
All right. That's your words, not mine.
My word.
But one of the reasons that he refuses to condemn October 7th, and it'd make great political benefit if he would, at least say something, right, is that he knows his people won't support it. That
They support Hamas.
We see that in all the polling. Over 70% of Palestinians on the West Bank support the October 7th massacre. And that is, unfortunately, a catch-22 because it's his regime that teaches and all the incitement, all that.
And pays stipends to the terrorists,
Correct.
not just teaching them.
Inexcusable.
That's right. And I think you and I, are probably going to be long dead before those societies change. It takes a really long time. Okay, it does. And I mean, you cannot educate a generation, even if we started right this second changing all their school books and their mind frame and erase Mein Kampf from the laptops of all the people in Gaza.
Yeah.
But
Ruthie, I'll ask you a tough question. You've seen very important changes across the Gulf, and these were Arab countries. These are still Arab countries, but these are societies that in the past they used to do all the same bad things, right? They used to teach that Jews were terrible and all this extremist narrative, right? And they changed. And there are more and more voices in the Arab world that want reconciliation with Israel, that see Israel as a partner, right? Even an ally against extremism,
against Israel. It's with the West. Okay. The idea is, when you see that any society that decides to emulate the West to some extent, flourishes or becomes at least wealthy. Okay, I mean, the joke is you go to Dubai, it's like, oh my God, you've never.
I was just there.
I mean, so. The fact is, the aspiration to make money and to have, not that money solves it. It's not that there aren't, no amount of money in the world would make me want to have a man accompany me to the grocery store or whatever. No.
Yeah.
Okay. And Saudi Arabia, I think MBS really is a reformer, but let's not get carried away. You said women were allowed to get driver's licenses about 2 years ago. Okay. They're modernizing. The point is, whether they want to fight with the West or fight with Iran or, with the evil forces. And we all have to support ourselves in the endeavor to get them to be on the right side of history.
And we saw on the night of that Iranian missile attack on Israel, which way they went down. They went down on the Israeli side, on the American side, against the Iranians.
I don't know. There was something a little bogus about that whole missile attack, okay? Really? Iran, if Iran had wanted, it would have done a much more. There is something very fishy about that whole, a little Iranian attack of all these missiles, and then a coalition. We had, missile defense from everywhere. I
couldn't disagree more.
I
think
know.
They shot at us hundreds of missiles. They thought that they would saturate our missile defense. In the end, with the help of our allies, but mainly because of our own technology.
But it was defensive. Okay?
But what is the point here? I think it's a great day for Israel. Why? Not only did we show the Iranians that our technology and our ability is much stronger than anything that they can put in the field, right? And that hopefully will make them think a few times before they try anything like that again. But more importantly, if you're in Japan, if you're in South Korea, if you're in Poland, or if you're in Germany, and you face a neighbor who has missiles and might attack you, you are looking at Israel and you are saying, this is a model that I want to embrace. These are technologies that I have to learn more about. I think that single night will help Israel and our relationships, our military and strategic relationships with a whole group of countries.
Well, I have two things to argue with that. The first is that you can look at that in a completely different way. That event should have made us actually attack Iran. Yeah, I know. We did some retaliatory thing.
We never said anything publicly.
I know. Okay, we didn't even say it publicly. So what I'm saying is that doesn't look so good, okay? We got attacked and we didn't do anything. That's bad. That's a bad message.
I'm not sure that I don't agree.
The other thing is technology. Let me tell you something. It is our pride in our technology, which, by the way, deserves praise and all that. I'm not putting down our technology, but our pride in it made us have a completely false conception about what was going on the Gaza border, okay? Because we thought technology was a replacement for soldiers on the ground, for our intelligence, for the young girls who were all slaughtered because their commanders wouldn't listen to them when they said Hamas was coming in. And in the end, technology, schmechnology. They shot at the cameras, they shot at the whatever it was, those things that were guarding the border, and just went in with a little tractor, broke down the border fence. So you'll excuse me if I don't want to hear the word technology for a while in relation to our war.
Technology in itself is not enough. But when you've got smart pilots flying smart planes, and when you've got very, very motivated soldiers on their anti-missile batteries, the combination of a population that is motivated, that believes in the need to defend this country and are proud Israelis, the combination of that together with the technology, that is a winning conversation. And I said to my friends, people were sitting around, we spoke about this at the beginning of our conversation. Should we celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut? Should we be depressed? Is there a future? And there's a lot of that in the Israeli public. I said to them, imagine that we would be sitting here on Independence Day 1974, right after the Yom Kippur War. Or imagine if we'd been sitting on Independence Day in 2001, just after the Park Hotel massacre and the buses were being exploded and suicide bombers. People were afraid to leave their homes. I remember what it was like then. You remember what it was like
I
then,
do.
right? Both those crises, we came out on top. Israel prospered. Israel prevailed. Israel grew stronger. And I am firm in my belief. And I think every objective criteria. I understand the current, pessimism. There's a current feeling that, they got us with our pants down on October 7th and this is a war and we've lost too many people and we're going to, unfortunately, lose more people. But the bottom line is this. Israel will continue to be strong. Israel will continue to be a success story. Israel will continue to prevail. And that's my message to you on this Yom Ha'atzmaut.
And on that cheerful note, I think we're going to end this week's podcast. I'm really happy that we ended it on a happy note because I haven't been feeling that optimistic lately. Thank you, Mark.
I look forward to arguing with you again next week.
So do I.